Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're at. My name's Kevin Poorman. I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I have a special guest with me today. His name is Shane McLaughlin. Not McLaughlin. McLaughlin. Shane, you want to say a little bit?
Sure. My name is Shane McLaughlin. Kevin was asking me earlier where I lived, and it's about an hour from Houston. I've been on the Salesforce platform for about 10 years, and I currently work in product marketing for platform.
And what kind of work do you do for product marketing for platform?
Mostly demos. And
Okay.
so if you were to see something, in the old days or in virtual Dreamforce, now, some of that kind of stuff I build. Also a lot of hands-on workshops, the stuff that we would show to IT analysts like Gartner and Forrester. Mostly demos.
Very cool. Very cool. And you've been on the platform for about 10 years, which is about as long as I've been on the platform. Do you remember what API level you started with?
Ooh, that's a good question. 27, I think.
27.
I need. Well, it would be Winter 11.
Winter 11. Okay.
I'd have to check the math on that.
Yeah, I started with API version 11.
Ooh.
Which I think was only API, which is probably winter of 08, 09, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, today we're going to talk about Quididdy, and the tagline for our show is "You shall not pass," using Quididdy to conditionally execute code. Do you want to venture a guess as to where we got the name Quididdy?
It's Latin related, right?
I mean, it could be. I was told it was related to like Buddhist teachings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
could be.
Who knows? You want to throw out an idea?
Meanwhile, everyone watching this is now Googling.
Yeah, what is the etymology of Quididdy? So that's a big $10 word for a $3 phrase or $3 idea that means like the essence of something. So you may be going, what in the world does this have to do with Salesforce? You want to venture? You want to throw out an idea here? That's for you, Shane. Sorry, I should have directed that to you.
Yeah. The Quididdy that we usually see in Apex, you've got someone's going to receive a request, and you actually want to know not only what was requested, but you want some of the context of where it's coming from. And so Apex has had some stuff that's done this, like, for example, if I'm in a future method, I don't want to accidentally call a future method again. There's certain things that are not allowed. And so you kind of look in that request and find out where it's coming from and what it's trying to do. And I think Quididdy is a more expansive, better way of looking.
All right, I think I may have just lost your audio there. You want to say that again, that last part? Oh no, we've lost the Shane. No audio coming through. Let's try that again. I cannot hear you now. I'm going to drop you back in the mix there. Let's try that again. Like for 20 minutes before this started, we were going over and we were testing all the different audio things. I'm going to undo this. Maybe it was because I clicked onto the browser preview pane. Let's see, does it come back now? No. Okay. Shane, do you want to reconnect maybe? And I'll go create some files and there we go. All right, so Shane has dropped out. Shane will be back. Oh no, we lost Shane. Feel free to heckle him in the stream chat if you're paying attention today. If you're in the stream chat today, we're going to be working with Quididdy today. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I spelled it right. So I'm going to type Salesforce Quididdy, 2 D's, 1 T. 2 D's, 1 T, good. Okay, good. I feel better about that. And then I'm going to create a class. And do we have Shane back?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you! Fantastic.
Lovely. All right. Thanks, Wirecast.
So we're not going to ask you about what Quididdy means anymore. We're just going to dive right in. I'm going to create a new class. And I'm going to name it Quididdy. recipes because we're solidly creative when it comes to naming things. Let's see, where's my Quididdy recipes? I put it there. Oh, you know what? That's not the right place to put it. I put it in the general metadata folder, not in the classes folder. Silly Kevin. New folder. Like half the fun of this whole show is watching me typo.
Oh, nice. Are you currently editing a shared document?
I am creating a shared document, actually.
Okay. So it's working as intended.
Yes, it's working as intended. Now I'm choosing the directory to put it.
Gotcha.
Quididdy recipes. All right, let's make sure
Now
that...
I can see it. Nice.
Yeah. All right. So first things first, as with all of our stuff, we're just going to create a nice demonstrates the use and functionality of Quididdy. We don't need these two. All right, so basics of using the Quididdy. How do we want to do this? Just to demonstrate what, like, how to get the Quididdy of something.
Well, do you want to talk about the request class first? Because there's some other things that are useful and kind of then work your way down.
Yeah, so Quididdy comes as part of the request class, right? So if we want to do something with the request, so let's do a public static void demonstrate get Quididdy. And I'm just doing this so that we have a place to start typing some things. And what you can do is you can do system.request dot, and it's not showing me the options. Ruh-roh. What are some of our methods here on the system request? Let's look
You've
over
got
at the
to get
docs.
current. Yeah, so get current with no parameters.
Get current, so it's a property, not a method.
No, it's got parens. It's just it's a
no
method that
parameters.
takes
Okay.
nothing.
All right.
And then that kind of brings you back this thing that then you can ask for the request ID or the Quididdy.
So
it's like a two-step.
What kind of object is that? Is it a?
It is a request. So like in the docs, they have this signature to it.
Gotcha.
And so then once you have this, then you can ask it about other things. Like there's more getters inside that.
So we can do rec info dot. It doesn't it's not giving me any. Do I need to update my metadata?
I don't know if it's metadata. This may be in the language server.
Yeah.
That's just not there yet.
Okay. So sometimes I found that when I have that problem, if I do sfdx update, I can solve that.
Nice.
Yeah. And it is
Does
updating.
it restart that Java language server?
You know, I'm not sure.
Maybe. Okay.
No, doesn't appear to. All right, so with the request, we can get the current request, and then what can we do with that request? So we can get Quididdy, but what are some other things we can do with the request class?
They have this one as one of the examples, and this is probably outside the topic of what we wanted to talk about today. But if I were doing this, and like if you imagine you had a request that came in, and then maybe it triggered out several other things, so like, oh, this starts a future, and then or it starts something, and then you got a finalizer on the end. But you wanted, especially if you're building something that's related to logging, you wanted some way to like collate all those pieces of that request as it's scattered through various Apex executions to be like, oh, all this came from the same request. Then you'd have a request ID that should be consistent through all of that. So, you know, if you're building a nice fancy logging framework and tracing it, that's what I would use a request ID for. And
as it turns out, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, Chris Peterson and I started building that. And the next iteration of that, the next thing that will be for, or is next session for Thanksgiving Day, is the final conclusion of that building. And so you'll get to see us use get request ID there. But for now, let's work on get the Quididdy. So let's get Quididdy.
Yeah.
Like that. And let's just, for the grins and giggles, let's do some debug. Like that. So we can just see what it looks like. And capitalize that. Okay. Now, we've got a method. It just system debugs the Quididdy of the request. So if we were to create I'm going to save that. I'm just going to create a Scratch file here. Can you see my Scratch file?
Yes, I can.
Quididdy recipes dot. What do we call our method? Demonstrate get Quididdy.
Demonstrate get Quididdy.
All right. Demonstrate get Quididdy. Like that, and if it'll let me highlight everything, I'm just going to go ahead and execute anonymous this. Currently selected text. Of course, that may fail because it seems...
Hey, you just spoiled the Quididdy.
I just what? Oh, I did. Spoiler alert.
I said you just gave us a spoiler.
I did. Hey, Bob, you asked for a bigger font size. I increased it. Is that doing good for you? I can make it even bigger if you would like. And I'm waiting for this to push to my Scratch org. No, I don't want to do that. I want this to be pushed to my Scratch org. Or execute anonymous. I don't know why it's taking so long to... Okay, that compiled and deleted, updated, and then it ran this. So debug. I'm looking. Can you see my my output console here, Shane?
I can see it, but I don't see anything in it.
Yeah, I don't see anything in it.
Maybe that's my console
either.
Okay.
So this says it did
it deploy to the org?
Let's try that again. Let's try deploying to the org.
Okay.
Let me clear this out. One thing I really wish we had, and if I was better at writing Visual Studio Code plugins, I would submit this as a pull request, but I would love for it to have a setting where it automatically cleared my output. Like it runs a command, and if it's complete successfully, it clears it. Anyway, so I'm going to now run this again with execute anonymous, and we'll see what the Quididdy comes back with. All right, let's try that again. And interesting. Oh, here we go. It comes back with anonymous. So I'm going to pull up our docs here for a second here with the Quididdy enum. Now, when we do that get Quididdy, it's going to come back with a value from the Quididdy enum. And in our docs, we've got a whole bunch of values here, like anonymous, aura, batch, ACS, etc., all the way down to things like REST or SOAP or synchronous. These are all the various Quididdy types that you can get back. And anonymous, we see here, is execution event is an anonymous Apex block. So that's exactly what we expect from calling this code. Now, that seems like a perfectly true but rather useless example. How do you feel about that?
I can think of all kinds of things I would do with this.
Yeah? Like what?
Well, because we have a lot of those, we've traditionally done like a system.is feature. Like we've done this to prevent trigger recursion. We've done this to prevent like things that you can't do, like features calling features, or doing certain things can't happen from a batch transaction.
Yep.
And there's always been a little bit of weirdness there, which is like, oh, okay, well, it is a batch, but this is what's happening in it. And I think as you get more of these types, your code knowing where it's being used, I think is a lot smarter. The genesis of this was a conversation we were having about Apex security.
Yeah.
And that was one of our, hey, what could we do? What could we do with Apex security? And we talked about kind of this problem of elevated privileges, unintentional reuse within your namespace, and trying to limit what your Apex could be used by someone else to do.
And I believe that the actual bit of code that brought that up was our account trigger handler. And I'm gonna Was it the account trigger handler? I am.
I don't remember.
I think it was our account trigger handler because something came in here and was like, "This is a there's a CRUD violation here because we're not checking for." Or it wasn't CRUD, it was SOQLInjection was the warning.
Okay.
Let's see, where did we have that SOQL injection? It's a CRUD warning 1. We suppressed the CRUD warning ones. And maybe it wasn't the trigger. But the trigger is a great place to do this. But you know what it was? I put it in the, it's in the shared code, the account service layer.
The dynamic SOQL recipes.
Was it dynamic SOQL recipes, or was it the there's a lot of recipes now. I'm just going to go with that. Okay. I believe it was here in the no, maybe it was. Let's just go to dynamic SOQL recipes and look at that. So in our data recipes, we've got dynamic SOQL recipes. Yeah. You're right. I don't know why I was thinking it was in the other places, but here we go. So in our dynamic SOQL recipes here, we've got the ability for us to run some of these queries that turn around and build on and generate query strings dynamically, hence the name, dynamic SOQL queries. And one of them in particular at the very bottom is a very common use case that I see where people try to build a query builder, right? And I love the idea of a query builder, but the problem with a query builder is if you do it wrong, you open yourself up to SOQLInjection. And in this particular case, with a query, you could leak fields or data that you don't want to be leaked with a SOQLInjection. So we've got this fairly easy sort of shoot from the hip query builder, and this is where we can start using Quididdy to do some interesting things. So for instance, if I ran this from the context of a trigger, if I ran this simple query builder from a trigger, what sort of security profile do I have running? What kind of security situation do I have in place, Shane?
Because you're coming from the trigger context, as long as you haven't changed with any keywords anywhere in that set of classes that you're calling through, you should be able to see everything.
And that may not be what we want.
CRUD, yeah, CRUD doesn't matter because this little security enforced string is going to be like, oh, this is running as a trigger.
Right. So if we wanted to sort of guard against that and protect against it, we could, in our method here, inject some information about the Quididdy and say, if we're in a trigger, let's not do that, right? So,
yeah.
Uh-oh. We got I think we both tried to type at the same time. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was going to say, if I were writing this and I knew that I meant for this class to be used as a trigger, I would probably, rather than trying to filter out Quididdys I don't approve of, I would say, I really want this to be used in this context because one of the things we were talking about with like unintended reuse is someone's like, oh, that's a really nice query builder. Let me put it inside an Aura-enabled method.
Right.
And I also have some communities. And so
yes.
Now people from the internet can call methods that run query builders in Apex and query things that they should not.
Yep.
And unless, and maybe I have security enforced and I've done some checks in this method to verify all that, but maybe I haven't. And so by limiting the Quididdy, then you could be like, hey, this is only supposed to be used here. And if someone else wants to reuse it, they kind of have to go in and do it on purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. So one of the things that I think we should do is establish a quick way to get the Quididdy without having to boilerplate get the request and then get the Quididdy. Now we could do that in a couple of ways. I think we could probably do the enum, what is it? Is it system.Quididdy?
I think you can just call Quididdy.
Is the object type?
Yeah. That's the type.
Quididdy dot. I guess it's just Quididdy, and then do.
Yeah, exactly. Q.
System dot. Oh, yeah, I guess we should give it a Q. System dot request. I'm going to capitalize this because I'm picky. And you're going to correct the syntax because apparently I'm sleep deprived. System dot request dot get current request dot get.
Oh, it's just get current.
They're killing me with these method name consistency stuff.
Hey, I'm not Chris Peterson.
I know. All right, so there we go.
Yeah.
Like that. So we can just, I guess that's not too much boilerplate. One line isn't terrible. And then we can, I like to do this as a guard statement. Now, if you're not familiar with guard statements, they don't really exist in Salesforce. They're a thing I learned in Swift, and that basically says, if these conditions don't match, then return. Right? Or throw a hard failure. So I like to do them like this, and set it up so that, like, if Q is equal to let's see, Quididdy dot anonymous, then we can continue. But since it's a guard statement, I'm going to say if it's not equal to, then we can turn around and say return new list. Okay. All right, so we're keeping our sort of software contract the same, but we are, we're still going to return and do that safely. How would you handle it if we had multiple acceptable uses for this?
How many are you talking about? If it were two, I'd probably use a
else
or I would probably use if it's this or this, return and I think I would probably if it's this or this. Yeah.
Acceptable quiddities would be for this kind of builder. We probably don't want to trigger. So we could do, I'm going to flip over to our docs here. So not anonymous is probably fine. Because if you're running anonymous, you probably are already at like a system. But let's see. I'm looking for what is the normal? Is there a normal?
Synchronous.
Is it synchronous? Okay. So
so
synchronous would be fine. And I don't have a problem with it being in a batch apex or a queuable. How do you feel about those?
I feel good. I think to get one of those scheduled, you're sort of the admin. Someone's got permission to schedule,
So we could, with 3, would you do it as a switch, or would you do it as
I think I would want to. I think I'd want to have and statements there. The other way that I might do this is I might put them in a list and do like a, hey, if it's in the list, and that way you'd have this habit of, oh, if I need to go change it, all I have to go do is add something to my array of strings, right?
I mean, that sounds. Let's do that. So we'll do list string accepted. Don't want a capital letter.
It's almost self-documenting that way.
Accepted quiddities.
Plural of Quididdy. Yeah. Yeah.
The hard part about making up words in things is what do you do with plurals? Okay, accepted quiddities.
I think the plural is Quidditch.
Quidditch. Then we can have a seeker step in. So we'll do new list string, and we'll put in it's going to be synchronous. Did I spell that right?
Yeah.
Queuable batch. Like that, and then we can say
the one for batch is called batch underscore apex. There's like 4 kinds of batches over there.
Yeah, I didn't. Some of these are like batch ACS. I'm not entirely sure that I've ever, like, I don't know that I've probably hit it before, but I don't know that I've hit it before. So that's interesting. Okay, so we're gonna say that, and then we're gonna say Q. We'll do. Actually, you know what? It's not gonna be a string. It's gonna be Quididdy. Right?
I would probably do if accepted Quididdies
Contains.
Includes. Is it includes? Is that I get mixed up between JS and Apex all the time, but yeah, if accepted Quididdies includes Quididdy or whatever, however you stringify that enum,
List methods. Salesforce. List class. I'm looking up the docs because I don't remember if it's include or contains either. So we'll do include. It is not include. Contains. Contains list element. Okay.
There we go.
So
Thanks.
Contains Q. So I've made the list type to be Quididdy, and we're going to say if it contains that accepted list type, then actually we don't want that. We don't want it to do that. So
not.
If not,
yeah.
I wonder if there's a. I would love it when, like on the string methods, we have not blank and blank, or is blank and is not blank.
Yeah. And is null. Yeah.
Oh, that's because those aren't strings. I changed the type, but I didn't change the constructor's data. All right, let's just save that.
Yep. I like this look inside the array because then you have like this explicit list, and if someone decides later to add one, they just have to add the name of the thing.
It also allows you to set up, like, you could have a class with nothing but accepted ranges of Quididdies, and then you can be like, if this is not super user, or if this is not, or various things. Okay, let's see why we're getting an error here. Variable does not exist, batch apex. Do I have to fully qualify them? I bet you
Maybe.
I do.
I have no idea.
I
mean, I like enums, but I pretty much convert them to strings as soon as I see them.
I mean, if this fails, we're going to convert it to a string because I'm tired of fighting with it.
Yep.
Oh, look at that.
Say, it likes that. It likes that.
It likes that. Okay. So we've got.
That just seems.
If we're not in our default Quiddies, we're going to reject that. Now, my hackles are up in that I wish I had a simple guard method here. So maybe at some point in the future I will extrapolate this into its own guard method. But anyway, so we've got that set up here, and now if we were to save this and run it, this should fail. Like, our test should fail because we're not running it in any of those methods. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open.
Yeah, so this is going to be fun because not only is anonymous a method or a Quididdy, but also all of your test contexts are also Quididdies.
Yes. Dynamic SOQL recipes tests. And I'm going to look for the particular one for the query builder. Somebody's already gone down and found it. And I'm going to run the test, and this should fail. So while we're waiting for the test to run, I hear you play an interesting instrument.
Yeah, career number 1, I was a French horn player.
What's the deal with, like,
for about 5 years?
I've always wondered this about French horns, and I have to admit I was not a band geek when I was a kid, but why is it on a French horn you have to stick your hand in the horn?
Well, there's some physics reasons, and the practical reasons are if you don't play with your hand in the bell, the thing is actually like a quarter tone sharp and gets sharper as you play higher in the range. And so the hand is the hand is there to make it a little bit less offensive of a sound, but also to control the tuning. It's almost like a fine tuning. It's like you can do little pitch bends and stuff like that. And then like originally they didn't have valves on the things, and so that was how you changed the pitch with your hand. Back when people were riding around on horsebacks and doing silly stuff with horns.
Wow. Like,
yeah,
I did not expect that. All right. So this test failed.
Excellent. Because of the Quididdy or because of any other reason?
No, because of the Quididdy. Expected to find a single
Excellent.
count, and this just returned a blank list. So we've got this set up here to return. How can we make our test pass? Although I would have expected synchronous to work, but since it's a test and there's 6 or 7 different...
There's 3 Quididdys related to tests.
Yeah, let's see what they... Run test async, run test deploy, and run test sync. So maybe we should just add those 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Those would be acceptable. Yep.
Quididdy dot run test sync. Quididdy dot run test async, and Quididdy dot run deploy.
Yeah, otherwise it passes really well in dev and then you can't deploy.
Exactly. Run test deploy is more important than you might think. So we've got this set up here. Let's run our test again, and if this passes, then we've sort of got a positive passive test here. We should write one that is there a way to fake Quididdy? Like, could you write a unit test that forces a Quididdy that is not the one that you're actually using?
Oh, you mean we could inspect the actual Quididdy and then say, if this is a test, let's behave differently?
Right.
That's always a bad practice.
Yeah.
but it's the example of, is test running, I guess. What is that one called? The one we're not supposed to use.
Yeah, is test running. That one passed. All right, so we've demonstrated that if we set the Quididdy to include our tests, Quididdys, that works. Is there a way for us to run this in a way that would fail because is there a way for us to set the Quididdy to be, asynchronous or
like
something
what I would do
fail?
if I wanted to actually verify this with a test, you could put a wrapper around it in your test class and have like a test method that for example, use some other Quididdy. Like, for example, it's an invocable apex that gets called, or you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking to see if we've got.
Maybe
we could do a future.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Wrap it in the future.
Those are a little bit. Yeah, those aren't bad to test.
All right, so let's just do. I'm going to switch over to the test. We'll write a new one. At is test. And do static. Maybe. Void. We'll do query builder with at future Quididdy. And we probably need to create a method in our dynamic SOQL recipes that will...
Or in the test.
Or in the test. You think in the test?
Well, like if you don't want anyone to actually use that method ever...
And I don't want people using at features.
Yeah, I would keep it in the test then, because it's not really function code, right? It's test code.
It's true. Private. No, they have to be public. At future. Public static void. Execute. In future. And then we can just call this exact same bit of test. And we'll see if the at future makes it fail.
I mean, this is the interesting question. You're like, oh, what's the Quididdy of that going to be? Is it a test or is it a future? I don't know.
So we're going to put this into test mode with start test, and we'll run at future. What did I call that method? I hate it when I just create a method name and I can't remember it. Execute in future. Test.stop test. And let's see if that works. It should be saving. There we go. For some reason, it's taken a while to save today. Failed to run. You know why it failed to run? Because I forgot the semicolon. You would think that with all the advances in computer science over the years, that we would be able to figure out when the line terminated without requiring a semicolon. Chris.
I think, or hey, ESLint handles that for me.
Right.
I never type this. I never type the semicolon. I just hit enter most of the time, and it figures it out.
So we got Daniel Ballinger here asking some questions. Daniel wants to know about my not equals comparison operator. I think he is struck fascinated by my
ligatures.
It's called font ligature. I get asked this every Thursday. Font ligatures are a feature of fonts. I use Cascadia Mono, or Cascadia Code Mono, and you just turn them on in Visual Studio Code, and then whenever you have something that is a symbol that is defined by multiple font characters, so equal, or equal, or dot, or not equal, or dash arrow, or fat arrow. All these things, what happens is the font itself replaces the two individual characters with the glyph of them merged. And I found them after reading a study from Microsoft that said when they started making people use font ligatures, quality went up because bugs went down because people were able to read the code better. So I'm a big fan of them, but I do get asked about them every time. And then he also wants us to know that using strings instead of the enum makes him sad.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, but we did use the enums, right?
Yeah, we switched to the enums. I think he's talking about me. Because I would have put those as strings and just like instead of typing Quididdy dot every time before each one of those, I would have been like, oh,
There you go, Shane. Making the community sad.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running no test now. It failed to run. Let's see why. Method only allowed during testing. Start test. We are testing. Say what?
Do you need... Which method did it say failed?
Let's find out.
I
bet you it's the at future annotation. Okay, method only allowed during testing. At line 101. Oh. I already called start test and stop test.
Oh. That's cool.
Alright, let's try that again.
Doing its job.
Mm-hmm. Which makes me think this is going to work, because at future was saying, no, I can't run this because start test.
Is this not a test?
Right.
Okay.
Let's run this again.
Because do you think we're using the Quididdys to verify the runtime?
That'd be
cool.
Kind of like eating our own dog food. Oh, look at that. That passed.
Because it thinks it's a test?
Yes, but it shouldn't have passed.
Yeah, this is my question. I was like, hey, when that Quididdy comes in, maybe we could debug it out. Yeah, does the Quididdy think it's a test, or does the Quididdy think it's a feature?
I don't know. We'll find out. System debug, and I'm gonna put us a nice little like happy tag.
Mm. Yeah, Heroku style.
Heroku style, exactly. Q. That. Come on. There we go. Saving today.
It's so interesting because I can't see any of your save functions running. So I'm just like, huh.
I see you when you trigger it, like, because you have a tendency to like do something and then immediately save, which I do the same thing too. I see you triggering him when you do that, which is interesting. Okay, so we've got that here. Our result should be, we should be getting 0 back. So let's check what that does when we run our @future test again.
Okay.
It wants me to know that we should have at least 1 assert in this test, which is true. It should have at least 1 assert. But I'm not seeing it. That says it passed. Let's open up our... Oh, you know what? I have to turn on the logs for this org. I'll have to run that test again. So, part of being a good French horn player is knowing how to hold your hand in the horn.
Oh yes. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, teaching horn lessons, you always sit where you can view kind of inside the student's bell, because half the time they'll like start to get lazy and their hand position kind of collapses, and you have to be like, nope, straighten that back out, or
All right.
because otherwise you can't see what they're doing with it.
That sounds okay. So this one is, we got our logs back. We have run test async.
What's the Quididdy?
Is the first one. I'm only seeing the 1. So it's running it, but it still says we're in a test context.
Okay, that's yeah.
Oh, it's got us running stop test already. So we're going to run in the future stop test. We'll force that to run. And because it's async, we're getting the results back. So the Quididdy doesn't, in a test case, there may not be a way to force it to set the Quididdy. I don't suppose there's a set Quididdy method. That would be too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and somebody would do something bad with it. You'd have to restrict it just
to test. Yeah. I'm looking in the Quididdy methods. Here we go. Execution event type. Yeah, I don't think that's what I wanted. Let's do the request class. So we can get Quididdy is a method, but there's no sets on the request class. So okay. We may not actually be able to test this in a way that I want to be able to test that when it is the proper Quididdy, it works, which we can do. But we also want to be, I want to be able to test that when it's the wrong Quididdy, that it fails, and it fails in the right way. But it doesn't look like that is going to be possible here. I'm going to record myself saying, "Darn you, Chris Peterson," and then put it on the soundboard so that I can use it multiple times. Let's see. Let's check in with anybody else here on our. We got somebody from the Apex team here today in the chat. It looks like. Yeah. Quote: "If you only knew the horrors around enums," unquote. I'm thinking, Daniel says, I'm thinking wherever you implement your guard statement, you allow the Quididdy to be mocked. So that's true. We could, I mean, it would be ugly. And then, I mean, we could simply do something like this. Let me fix the indentation. And we can say, if test dot, if not, test dot is running test. Actually, you know what? We're going to do this with Quididdy because
that's
why not? All right. So if q is not equal to, I can type run test. No. How do I get the string version of it? This is just string.value of.
I think it is a string if you try to use it that way. Like, doesn't it just
Does it autocast?
cast it for you? I think so.
We'll find out. Dot starts with run test.
Otherwise, they're always string.value of, you know?
Yeah.
If you have to cast.
I think I'm going to have to cast.
Okay.
But now I can do starts with runs test. And why do we know like that? Let's see. So if we're not in a test condition, then we'll say that. Let's see if this saves. We're being told not to use value of. It will cause a GAC. Okay?
Good to know.
So we'll do q.get shortcode.
Huh?
Maybe?
Really? Okay.
It's a system.get shortcode. Maybe we'll do it the other way. We'll do system.get shortcode of q that starts with run test. Then we're going to set accepted quiddities and otherwise nope, accepted quiddities. Quiddities is equal to new list. Like that.
I'm not saying this is a wonderful pattern, but if I were doing this, I might have a constant somewhere that's just called test quiddities.
Yes.
And then I could use it throughout, and that way I could always, if I needed to check for tests, it'd be easy to check for tests. And if I needed to include those in my accepted quiddities, it would be like whatever you want, and then of course tests. Tests are always cool.
Yes. The other thing that I might do is, I like to use this method, or this pattern, where I'll create a at test visible, and I'll do private quiddity injected quiddity is equal to, we'll just leave it that way, and I actually like that pattern better than this. So what I'm going to do here is come back down to my query builder, and I'm going to say, instead of whether or not my quiddity starts with this, I'm going to say if this dot quiddity injected quiddity is what I called it.
Yeah, but you misspelled it.
Great, let's fix that.
I was trying to, but
I scrolled out of the way. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Inject. It looks like you did fix it.
Right? No, I mean over here.
Oh.
That one, right?
Yep, that one. So I can mock this by now using if this dot injected quiddity. Oh. Injected quiddity is not nil. Null, sorry.
No.
Yep.
What language are you in?
That's a valid question. All right, so if the injected quiddity is, actually I'm going to say is equal to null, then we're going to set this. Otherwise, it equals, I'm going to choose one of these where it's going to be is equal to quiddity dot future.
Hmm.
And actually what I'm going to do is, that's not what I'm going to do. That's a lie. If the quiddity is not equal to null, I'm going to come down here and say Q is equal to this dot injected quiddity.
Oh.
So I'm going to override the detected quiddity.
Okay.
But it's default null, so this should be safe, right? And that way we're not actually modifying the executing actions. We're still relying on this as our check. But in our test, over here, we can do, I'm just going to clone this. Did it not? Yeah. Okay, there we go. And what I'm going to do is, where I've got this method, is that a, I can't do that because it's not an instance method.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That's why it's throwing a flag on this.
Okay, we can fix that. We can just make that static.
Yeah. I think.
Scrolling. Private static. Save that. And then for this one, we can just say start test dynamic SOQL recipes dot injected quiddity is equal to quiddity dot future. But we got a syntax error probably here. This cannot be referred to in a static context. Okay, thank you.
I think that's left over from your previous save, maybe.
You think so? Because it's
maybe. Have you tried to save it like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's giving me a new error.
Okay.
This cannot be, okay, so I don't think we actually, I think we can just say let's see, missing, and the test we're missing semicolon at list. So line 102, oh yeah, semicolons. Get Quididdy shortcode. Okay, so there's this dedicated method to get the string version. Okay, so both of those saved, and in this one, is that? It did not save it. Sadness. I tried copying this entire test, and it did not put that in there. Okay. So let me do this and put that back where it was. Ah!
I'm not touching it.
Gnomes.
I've learned my lesson.
Gnomes. All right, we got 5 minutes left. Anybody else want to throw questions, comments, Snyder Mark, shade at us in the chat here? Otherwise, we're gonna test this, and it's gonna give me a positive, and this is the one where it's first positive, and I'm gonna put negative. Overridden quiddity. Save that.
That's an awesome name.
Overridden quiddity. Overridden.
No, just
overridden.
I meant the entire simple query builder test negative overridden quiddity.
You know, I tend to have long method names.
Nice.
I used to ask people what their favorite governor limit was, and mine was too many script statements. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Before we just move to the arbitrary time limit.
Yeah, but with that going away, now I ask people what's their favorite like issue with Apex as a language, and mine is I can't use as many characters in my method names as I want because I like to be descriptive.
Oh. Yeah.
So let's run our test and see if this.
I just want the JavaScript array methods in Apex.
I'm working on those. Did you know that?
That's all I want. I've seen a few projects like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a collections utility class, and I'm going to do one with a guy from the community to add slice and some of those methods.
Sounds good.
The fun part is maintaining your type safety.
Yeah.
All right, so this test looks like it ran and it passed. Let's make sure that it should pass. It is... it should not pass.
Which one? The overridden Quididdy?
Yeah, the overridden Quididdy is setting the Quididdy equal to future, which at future is not on our acceptable Quididdy list. So if this is working, then we are in trouble. So let's do this.
So on 175, if the injected Quididdy is null, you're setting the Quididdy to null?
No. Oh. Yes. Not null. Good catch. If it's not null, then we're gonna...
Then you're actually gonna inject it.
Yikes. All right, we've got 2 minutes left here. Let's get this one test passing, and we've got a solid example.
The real question is why that passed.
It passed because I was not actually injecting the Quididdy.
Okay.
So let's try that again. Run test. No pressure. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. You are awesome. All right. So we expected to find a set. Let's make this test pass now. So if we inject the Quididdy of future, we're going to say results is equal to 0. Defined 0, comma, expected to find an empty list. I'm excited about this because now we've used Quididdy to limit when a method can run. And while our example use case may not be something that you would, use all the time, then, but this is something that you could do in your own use case in your own time. So let's run this one last time. I'm going to ask and one more time if anybody's got questions, comments, Snyder marks, or shade to throw our way. And Shane, I want to thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun. That passed as well. So we have demonstrated how to use Quididdy to limit when your code can run, both positively and negatively. And I think with that, we're going to say, the Quididdy refers... Michael on the Apex team. It's like the Apex team joined us today just to
watch someone try to play with this.
Right.
Oh, are we the user testing?
And Michael from the Apex team is telling us to remember that the Quididdy refers to the outermost entry point, which is why we had to mock it this way. We couldn't execute it in that future code because that would be an inner execution. So that makes sense. All right, that's pretty cool. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. It is 1 hour at the mark, and so we are going to say goodbye, and we'll see you not next week. Next week will be a pre-recorded session, episode 2 with Chris Peterson and I building a logging framework using platform events. But after that, we'll be back to live events. So thank you very much, and have.
We're going to log the Quididdy though, right?
We are going to log the Quididdy. Have a great day.
Bye, y'all.